I have mixed emotions about the whole thing.
Go
Because
on.
if the board are going to go,
Yeah.
and all those people beneath Bill are going to go, then they are in as a team. They should go out as a team. You know, you can't. I don't believe that the reaction that Bill has got over the years has been fair and just, and there's lots of caveats to it because people tell different versions of different events about different decisions that were made at different times by Bill that have hampered the opportunity that Everton have got. They are fourth from bottom of the league. Bill was the chairman, and that board of directors are culpable for some of the decisions that are made. I do maintain the view that Moshiri is the ultimate decision maker, and if anyone's got any ire, it should be at him, if ire is entitled to be the emotion that people are feeling. So for me, if I was Bill, I wouldn't want to be there anymore. I would think that I've done my very best. I've done the level best. If not what you're happy with, then maybe it's time for me to step away. Clearly, Bill feels something different, and maybe they're just doing it as an exercise in respect and dignity. I don't think he'll be there long. I don't think this will last long. I don't think this will be a situation where Bill's going to be still the chairman of the football club for a variety of reasons. He's getting older. I think he's got some challenges with health. And who needs this? I mean, honestly, really, who needs it? And if people believe that because he's got an opinion on what happens at Everton, that ultimately his opinion stops Moshiri from making the decisions, then I just think they're deluded. And if they want to be angry, if that's what they think they're entitled to be, and take their anger to the level that it becomes, certain people getting out there over the top, then they should be at the owner. Not that I want anyone being given abuse. Having been an owner, I don't think it's necessarily in the best interests of anybody to start hounding people out of football clubs, especially the guys that are writing the checks.
See, it's all kind of died down now for the moment, Martin, now that the season's finished. But, I mean, for how long? As Simon says, talking about Ken right there, I look at a message that just comes in right there and then. Jeremy, an Evertonian. Moshiri joining the board's the worst thing that could happen. He needs to be as far away as possible from any decisions that are made. I mean, there is a real disconnect between sections of the Everton support and the board.
Well, there has been for quite some considerable time, and that is very, very obvious. It's played out in public as well too. This is an interesting point, Emma. Right, if for instance, if you as an owner are taking on manager or managers, plural, and you are giving them the wherewithal to spend money at a football club and spending your money, well, surely that responsibility has to pass on from you to the managers or the CEOs or the directors of football who are buying these players on your behalf. So somewhere along the way, but there's a lot of money has been spent at Everton, unwisely as it seems, because they've been a big struggle, wasted, as you just said. But seriously, if an owner is the owner, Moshiri's not actually stepping out. I'm sure not saying, oh, by the way, this is the choice of 3 players. Can you have this one? You know, he's given that responsibility to other people. Yeah, do you know that's my
well, I mean, that's a balanced view. I mean, I don't know how you would have felt about that when you were actually in the managerial job, but the point is this: is that well, in terms of it's a very pragmatic view. Yeah, because ultimately, my experiences of you guys as managers is that success is very different in other walks of life. Success is an orphan; it belongs to all just you guys, and failure is something that gets spread amongst everybody.
I totally disagree with that.
Okay,
absolutely.
well then you're very exceptionally balanced.
No, I'm not exceptionally balanced.
Albeit you had issues with Randy Lerner where you weren't as balanced.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, you get the perspective that where I think Moshiri is culpable and cannot get out from underneath it is not the acquisition of players. Because if I'm sat across the table from you, right, and you want to sign a player, and I say you can't have him, you're going to have a turn at some point. Or you're going to manifest that as some disappointment because you're going to say to me, well, what do you know more about that player than I do? And if I veto it, I've got a problem coming with you, and I keep on vetoing it because I want to have the final say. You're going to have a problem. And that's a difficult balance to strike. And you've got to get a relationship with these guys where that you give them within reason enough to be supportive of them, but not give them everything they want because eventually that might come back and blow back in your face. Where Moshiri has got it wrong, I just can't make sense of people like Benitez. I don't care how capable he is as a football manager.
No, that's the one that always
those decisions of bringing Benitez into Everton at the state of Everton at that time, the moment that team went off the rails for any period of time, that fan base were going to go. Yeah. So who's Benitez? That decision and decisions about chasing after Silva and doing it in a certain way and alienating Watford and then making Watford an enemy and then making Watford ramp up the price on Richarlison, who they probably would have done anyway. All of these things are not done by people like Kenwright. And not because I'm Bill's mate or because I want to support someone that I feel someone's been inequitable to, because it's Moshiri, and I know it's Moshiri. And he's getting a pass on this. And that's where I think Moshiri deserves to be condemned. The signing of Sigurdsson for 50 million quid and whatever's happened to him, or some manager said, you've got to have this player. We've got to have this player. And if I'm sat across the table from Martin and I've got 50 million quid, are you sure about this? Because I tell you what, it's your house that's going on the line for this. How about that? And if you go, I'll tell you, I'll put my house on it, then you've got him. Okay. Those are the conversations that grown-up chairmen have with grown-up managers.
Right. Okay. So that means that then that the owner is making a decision on that particular player. So getting back to the point, it is. No, it is, because you've said that you let's say you had employed me and I was asking for a player for a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Your answer should be, excuse me, Martin, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be signing that player.
No, they had the money.
You shouldn't. Hold on. Just let me finish. You shouldn't be signing that player because I don't think that player's good enough at this price. That's the point. That's a different argument from the one that you're making.
The argument is no, it's not at all. The argument is, are you absolutely sure? Are you absolutely sure? I'll go in behind you. It's a lot of money for this player, but are you absolutely sure? You're owning this, right? Because this one's on you.
Yeah.
I'll back you. Yeah. And if you're absolutely sure, then I'll back you on it. But this is on you, right? And those conversations are frank exchanges. And when you have conversations with managers like that, you go, right, well, you're going to put your house on this, right? No mucking about here. It's a big transfer deal for this football club. I'll back you, but I want you to be absolutely unequivocal. I want to see across the table that you've got no doubt. You've done all your research. You know all about this player. Every aspect of this purchase has been looked at from every angle. You're on this, right? Yes. Okay. Away we go then.
Well, what manager's going to say no? I actually haven't.
They do sometimes. When you put them right on the old expression that used to be trotted around by people like Tony Pulis, let's get some bodies in the building. Those lovely sort of expressions that get thrown around by managers. Well, let's get the right bodies in. How about get the right bodies in? And the old one I used to love as well, and the one I used to really love as well, which is, I'll spend your money like it were my own. Oh, yeah. All right, then.
Okay. Well, then they should have spent more of your money because you'd had plenty of it. But
they did.
Right, you did.
They did.
So, honestly, so and instead of getting a player for £4 million in those days, I should have asked for $8. I wasn't your manager.
That scenario that Simon has just...
is missing my point.
It's a good image in my mind. Have you ever had an owner, Martin, say to you, I tell you what, you can have him. You better be bloody right about this. Would you put your house on this purchase, Martin? Are you absolutely cast iron sure this guy will do his job? Have you been in that position?
Absolutely.
Who was the player?
Yes. Well, I'm not going to tell you the player, but I was at.
Did you get the player?
And I got the player.
Did it work for you?
And he was terrific.
So you were right.
He was absolutely.
So you
terrific.
gave the two fingers to the owner.
And it was Chris Sutton.
Well done.
It
was Chris Sutton.
Chris Sutton was absolutely brilliant.
What was the resistance to you saying?
No. Dermot just said to you, "Are you sure about the player? Are you sure about this lad?" I said, "Absolutely convincing." He said he didn't do all that well at Chelsea. I said, "Well, that's a different issue. He was brilliant at Blackburn Rovers, brilliant there. He didn't do well at Chelsea. He couldn't really settle. Okay, that might have been a mark against him. But at the end of it, he is a proper player. He's a proper footballer. I know it because I've seen him. And can he work for us? He'll be brilliant, and he'll also be excellent for Henrik Larsson." And Dermot said, "Okay, we'll go with it. We'll go with it."
And boy, were you right.
But it's a fluid conversation. And it should be a fluid conversation.
But you're saying that Martin's missing the point of what you're trying to say.
Well, he is, yeah, because I'm not suggesting that ultimately I wouldn't be backing the manager. If I go to you and say to you, 20 million quid, spend it how you want, right? And I'll pay no attention to it, you do what you want. Yeah. And you get it wrong, and ultimately you need help, you're going to come back to me and say, well, hang on a second, I made this mistake, that mistake. I think due diligence is basically sitting across the table with you going, why are you making this decision? Some people might say, well, hang on a second, do you trust me or don't you? Yeah. Well, it's not a case of, if I didn't trust you, I wouldn't have you in the job. It's a case of me making sure that we are clear in everything we're doing, because I do trust you. I have given you a budget, but I want you to spend it wisely, because you're a football manager, with due respect, not an economist. You're not there to manage the books. You're not there to manage the wage bill. You're there to manage the team. And I want to make sure that when we give you this budget that we've agreed that you're happy with, that you make every decision conscious of the reality of the outcomes as a result of it.
And that's fair, isn't it?
And I think that's grown-up discussions.
Yeah, well, of course. And that is fair. But that's not the point is this here, that you can go in, you can be as bullshit as you want to the owner and say, listen, I've done all my homework in this player. He's absolutely fantastic. He will be great. And it might work out. That player might have an injury in the first two games, he might never really recover from it.
Oh, but that's
so
an
that's a black
exceptional
man.
item, isn't it?
Well, hold on, just a second. You want to be as right as you possibly can. This is not. You don't want this. I have never, as a manager, wanted it to be a numbers game, a game where I can go in and say to the owner, "Listen, I've got 4 players here. You know what? 3 of them will do okay," or something like this. No. We all want all 4 to do well. Now, somewhere along the way, that does drop. But you go in, you feel as if you've done the homework. You feel as if you know players. I know when I was at Leicester City, coming in and having a wretched time early on, but I knew where players were. I knew where Muzzy Izzet was. I'd done my homework. I knew where these players were, and if they can come up, they will improve the team. I knew where Neil Lennon was. You know, all of these players eventually go and improve the team.
And that's what happens in relationships, though, doesn't it? So he comes into the door, and I ask him to make sure that every aspect of what he's doing is done in a diligent way. I'll do my job diligently. I'll be on my job. I'll make sure that you're given what you need and the resources you do your job. And then what happens is people, if you make a mistake, someone buys a player, and every aspect of what they said was correct, but the player didn't work out. Everyone can live with that. An owner can live with it. They go, well, tell you what, we looked at it from every angle. All the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, right? And it just happens that this player didn't work out, didn't fit for some reason or another. And then what happens is you build a trust relationship with somebody, and then you go, tell you what, I'm comfortable with the fact that you're doing what you should be doing, because there are many times in football where people don't do what they should do. They do take the path of least resistance. They do take other people's words. They do not flow it through in the way that you think they should. And then that's the beginning of a relationship.
Well, there is a caveat to that there, and this is the point, that when this conversation takes place between the owner of a football club and the manager, then chances are this is at the start of their relationship. So the first players you're going through that door, you need as a manager, or you want them to be really seriously good. That's it, because that's where the trust comes in. Sure. Trust doesn't come in from the opening conversation. I could turn around and say to Simon, I've got these 3 great players. I need every one of them. He'll say to me, have you done your due diligence? Absolutely, I've done these things. But these 3 players coming in, or the number 1 coming in the door, have to do well. Yeah. They have to do well. And that's where the trust comes in eventually. And that's where when one doesn't do well down the line, that you have already bought. You've already
bought that currency.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct.
But you said the Sutton example, Chris Sutton worked. It worked at Celtic.
It
you
had
to go the extra yard to persuade Dermot Desmond to get him in, but it worked. Has an owner ever vetoed a proposed signing that you wanted to happen at the football club?
I haven't vetoed my opinion of a player, really. You know, if they haven't got the wherewithal to go and do something, that's a different issue. And that's fine. That's really fine.
You've been told, no, we can't go to that.
We really can't do this. And honestly, you'll just have to trust me in this here. Most of my time, I never went beyond the boundaries of what I thought could get in. You know, I had an idea what our budgets were.
Right.
I could have gone to Dermot and said to Dermot, listen, can we do something here?
Yeah, sure.
And because of that, Dermot would have done it.
There was an understanding there. But wasn't that understanding at Aston Villa? Because was it not the case that you would say to Randy Lennon now and again, I want this guy, but you're not having him?
No, yes. The relationship had changed on that there, but there's certainly early on.
What do you mean by that?
The
Lennon said, no, you're not getting him, Martin.
No, the personal relationship had changed a great deal in that time. When I came in, when Randy took over, Randy gave the go-ahead to bring Stilian Petrov down to the football club, where Mr. Ellis, who was leaving the football club, wouldn't have had the wherewithal to have gone and done this particular deal. So those things, the dynamic, it was really fine to begin with. Let's be fair about this, and our own personal relationship disintegrated for a while. So all of those things are taken into consideration, and I'm quite sure Simon
it's a two-way transaction, you see, and it's not often played that way. When an owner says no, it should be incumbent upon a manager to trust the reasons why the owner says no. And it doesn't often work that way. What happens is if an owner, what a manager wants to hear most of the time is yes. And if he doesn't hear yes...
Understandably.
Well, yeah, of course, it's human nature. But if there's a mutual respect and a relationship has been built, when an owner says no, it should mean that there's enough currency in that relationship on the flip side of that argument for a manager to accept it. And that's when relationships start to disintegrate.
Yeah, but
because it becomes a one-way transaction. Because managers go, well, I don't accept that. But hang on a second, I'm supposed to trust you unequivocally.
No, but you can understand why Martin became somewhat exasperated, I'm presuming, with Randy Lerner. Well, because no became a regular no.
But do you understand the point I'm making,
I do understand the point you're making, absolutely. But again, it's getting back to it. as a manager, seeing it from my viewpoint, my first couple of signings with you have to be really, really good. They have to be good
solid,
because then I've got this currency with you, and then I think that I can accept the fact that if we have this relationship and it's been going on longer than a season, maybe 2 or 3 seasons, then I know where you're positioned because you and I will be having these conversations. This is where I am. This is where I'm based here. This is what I can afford, Mark. So honestly, if there's little point in you coming in the 3rd of January and saying, listen, I need this boy, well, if it comes to the point, we'll have a wee look at it.
Yeah.
But you know where I stand here, and I absolutely
Communication-
fine.
communication
When
is
it's
the
when
key.
it's
And
when the
respect,
goal.
Simon,
It's when
I
the
know
goal.
what you go on about respect, and I totally understand it. There's got to be that between the two factions, hasn't there?
Of course.
Yeah.
That is built up over time. Whatever you say, that is not built up in the first meeting. That's not even built up.
Sure.
When Simon takes on a manager, he's hoping that he will do really well for him. There's a reason why he's taking him on in the first place.
Yeah.
But he will not really know about this manager until further down the line. This is the point.
Sure.
And vice versa.
I'm going to jump in.
Until
We need to take a
adversity.
break. By God, Chris Sutton worked for you at Celtic, though. That was
No,
a great sign. I love
listen,
that story.
Sutton was
He was
fantastic.
brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah.